friends here at the church, welcome. Let's take a nice breath together and let it out. And we'll continue to do that as we meditate together. The breath will be with us, whether we effort or not. In this holy space, our hearts open to a deeper experience of God. We open up our hearts, vulnerable and willing to be transformed, to let go, to shed the outer concerns and worries and needs, pressing though they may be at times. We let them go now. And I gently turn within and realize the goodness of God that is deep within, all around. Been immersed in God in goodness, love, all the time, even when I didn't know it. By turning in and meditating, I get in touch with it again and again, so that it becomes more and more conscious in my life. Touch into the well of unending source. I am the well. With my body relaxed and alert, the mind follows. Heart opens, as if I'm walking into a beautiful garden that beckons me. Come and sit in the beauty. Absorb the light. Be the light. Rest now in the garden of my mind, of my soul. I rest in the garden of God, where all is well. In the silence, I rest. Blessed silence. Such a blessing to us, and something that we carry with us as we go out into the day. this is not the only time that we can have silence and connect. At a stoplight, at the end of a sentence we've typed, when we wake up in the morning, we can remember the garden is there. The flowers as divine ideas are everywhere to be picked. We only have to turn toward God. Always turning toward God in consciousness. Always renewing our mind. And so it is. And so we let it be.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, this microphone is a little bit. It's not working. But anyway, without microphone is better. So, my name is Tatiana Zero, and today I chose to play for you a piece written by Tim Janis. It's another New Age composer. And he wrote pieces about nature, like what Reverend Elizabeth just said. So where we are in mountain or in forest, we feel God. And that's what about he wrote. And this piece is called Canyon Winds. Canyon Winds.
So she was swimming at her gym, and in between intervals, she noticed that there was another swimmer who was kind of waving at her. She didn't realize that he had been there, and so she stopped to kind of see what was going on, and he yelled at her, "I've been trying to talk to you." And she was startled, because when she swims, she doesn't wear her hearing aids. And he said, "I've been trying to talk to you. You're so rude." Because you see, when she swims, she doesn't wear her hearing aids because she's deaf. And so Susan Lackey said that it caught her off guard, and she was startled by it, but she continued on swimming. And when she got out of the pool, the gentleman was waiting for her over at the towels, and she had pointed to her ears, indicating that she was deaf. And he said, "Oh, well, you know, I've been thinking about it. You know what you should do? You should wear a swimsuit that says, 'I am deaf.' So people don't think you're so rude." So she smiled, and she didn't say anything, she didn't sign anything. She didn't tell him what she thought he should put on his swimsuit. Because after all, she wouldn't want to be rude. Susan Lackey, deaf swimmer, teaching us the same thing that Don Miguel Ruiz has been teaching us. We're in week 3 of the 4 Agreements, one of our favorite books. Most of us are familiar with it, if not having read it. It's a wonderful book to bring more peace into your life. So if you've got stress, there's probably an agreement in here that's been broken in your life that you can take up again. Because we're wired this way, and we're domesticated this way, according to Don Miguel Ruiz. Actually, he says that we are auto-domesticating animals, that once life and our parents, well-meaning up until the ages of 6 or 7, have done their job to pass along some good agreements and some bad agreements that aren't healthy for us, we take over. And we just keep buying in and putting all the agreements and the assumptions and the beliefs that don't work for us. We keep putting them into our own book of law, that he calls it. The book of law that none of us even knows exists. Because most of the time, it's living in the darkness, in the subconscious. It's so automatic that we don't even have to think about it anymore. Light turns red, your foot automatically goes for the brake pedal. Well, I hope it does. All those things that are automatic also happen to us emotionally and spiritually. And so we can walk around making assumptions. And our 3rd agreement, following on being impeccable with our word, which my new translation is, take care of yourself. That when we're taking care of ourselves, that's the most impeccable word that we can live, is truth and principle and honoring ourselves. And then, do not take anything personally, because everyone is walking around with their own book of law, their own black magic that they spew sometimes, their own lies that they believe automatically. It was a huge relief to me when I realized that I shouldn't blame myself for these beliefs that I've had, because I didn't even know they were there until I started doing deeper work, shadow work. It's the next big thing, if you will, in unity, in our life, in our country, in our world, is what's lurking, unquestioned, in the shadows. And so when you realize that you bring the light to it, it doesn't have any power. And this is a light-giving book. That when you realize that you don't take anything personally, because everybody is coming from their own programming. It has nothing to do with you. It's what I called a few weeks ago the blue door. If someone says you're a blue door, do you believe them? Do you get upset? Do you rail against them? How dare you? No, you know you're not a blue door. So you don't have to take on whatever anybody else says about your doorness. Instead, we tap into the Christ. He doesn't use those words in the Toltec tradition, but we can use those words here. The Christ of me, the Christ of you, the Christ in the world, the God that is happening here. We don't need to make assumptions. And along with this book, as we've been going along, because I'm never quite set with whatever I'm reading, I always find that other teachings influence me, and they start to get woven into naturally. And so I have been sharing 2 other books that tie in what I call my troika. This is my troika. Put me on a desert island with 3 books, and these are the 3 that I choose. The 4 Agreements, Loving What Is, by Byron Katie. Always asking, is it true? Now, does that tie into don't make assumptions or what? Is it true? So I love to put the 2 together. Oh, I've been making an assumption. I've got another tool. And these people are friends, by the way. They're actually friends. Katie and Don Miguel Jr. And then The Power of TED, which is all about turning the dreaded drama triangle into an empowerment dynamic. And the shorthand version of that is, wherever I feel like a victim, I can become a creator. I'm never a victim. I don't have to take it personally. Instead of taking something personally, I say to myself, what do I want to create from this? That's a place of empowerment. That is the Christ strength coming forth in you. Whatever anybody shoots at you, you can say, what am I going to make out of this? They don't have power. I have my own power. Because assumptions are about other people, not you. We only control us. We don't control them. So if we're running around saying, I know what you're thinking, I know what you're doing, I know why they do that, you're living everybody else's life because you don't know. And all of these things, I believe, are about pulling back into our own power and not giving it away. Because the minute I think I know what you're doing, I've left myself. Maybe 5th agreement, don't leave yourself. Maybe that's what they all say. Don't leave yourself. Stay with yourself. And he says, Don Miguel, find the courage to ask the questions and to express what you really want. Interesting. When he's talking in this chapter about don't make assumptions, instead of talking about what you receive and make of it, he's telling you how to be proactive and to express yourself. So part of not taking things personally, taking things in, is about how we give out, how we present. So find the courage to ask the questions and to express what you really want. Communicate to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. So if you've got drama, there's probably some misunderstandings, some assumptions, things been taken personally, and probably somebody, everybody, is not expressing exactly what they want and need. And a typical example is, a married couple. And, well, he should just know what I want for my birthday. He should just know that the dishwasher staying unloaded for weeks at a time really gets to me. She should know that I like to put my clothes on the floor. And when she reminds me to pick them up, it reminds me of my mom. Ooh, maybe don't go there. But we need to let each other know. The reason I get so upset when X happens is because I've looked in and I realize blankety, blankety, blank. So when we catch ourselves making assumptions, we can step back and ask, have I made my needs known? Have I? I've now, once again, taken back my power and not made it a fight with an enemy, but where might I express myself more clearly? And here's what's even better news, that the real conversation happens within you. I say that almost every week, don't I? Where's the real thing happening? Within. Have you told yourself what you really need? Are you honoring yourself? Are you making assumptions and not challenging them in your own inner dialogue? Like, oh, it's okay, I'll just let that go this time. And then maybe, I wonder why I say that. Is that a pattern that I picked up somewhere? Like when I was a child, and it wasn't okay to question, and it wasn't okay to say no. I might say, is this part of a pattern? So look at the inner dialogue, question that, and start with, is it true? Any assumption that I've made, is it true? How do I actually know? So-and-so didn't call me back because they're a jerk. Do I really know that's why? Is their phone not working? Maybe they don't like me anymore. Doesn't mean they're a jerk. It might mean they're busy. How do I know? And then I can say, well, have I called? And then the powerful question in Byron Katie's world is to turn it around. Have I called myself? Is there something that I need to talk to myself about? Is there any self-talk that I need to look at? So we once again turn it within. Because we can't perceive things the way they are. We can only perceive things the way we are. It all comes through our lens. Whatever we're seeing in others, we can question, is there a smoky mirror here? What lens am I seeing through? And it didn't start with you, the ability to make assumptions. We are taught that. It's actually a natural, healthy thing. If the brain didn't automatically make some connections for us, our brains would explode with all of the information coming at us. So it has to automatically jump and make some assumptions to file things away so that you're not exhausted all the time. And most of the time, that may be okay. When we look at where is it not working, that is an assumption we can work with. Don Miguel says that we are so well trained that we are our own domesticator. This process of taking on what others believe, we now do ourselves. We are an auto-domesticated animal. We can now domesticate ourselves according to the same belief system we were given and using the same system of punishment and reward. Now really take that in. That we bought into a system of punishment and reward. You do this, you're good. You do that, you're bad. It's so basic that it's the water that we fish swim in that we don't even question it. We punish ourselves, according to Don Miguel, when we don't follow the rules according to the belief system that we were given, that we now perpetuate. We punish ourselves when we don't follow it, and we reward ourselves when we're a good girl or a good boy. It's still running. So bringing it into the light is what we're doing here. And not making assumptions means that we can question everything. Everything. Question the patriarchy. Question that capitalism is always good. Question that your worth comes from what you produce. Because in a capitalist society, that's what we're told. When you leave a system or you question a system that relies on you to create and do something, and it attacks you, that's your sign. Oh, you stepped out of the work world. Oh, you're just lazy. Oh, you just want to collect that unemployment. Those are all messages of domestication that are so ingrained that we don't realize that they're not true. Because our worth is in our being. We were born worthy. Before we produced anything, before you typed anything on a computer, before you made any widget, before you got to work on time, you're worthy. You're worthy. And that stuff isn't what it's about. And we're seeing that in the systems that fall apart. There's no such thing as racism. We've been taught that. Everything was taken care of back in the 60s. I believed that for a long time. They passed those laws. Everything is now equal, right? Thank you for laughing. Thank you for laughing at the absurdity of that. And I believed that for a long time and was told it and couldn't believe what they said might be underneath. Think about the mass domestication that took, of a whole world, that this was okay, that just this one system, just slavery, how we bought in and how long it took and how it's still being fought. Now think about all the things in your own little world that you might be believing that are harmful, and that if we root them out, the peace we find. And it starts, as Byron Katie tells us, with where's the stress in your life? That's all you have to look. You don't actually have to go looking and root around. You don't have to do the old, Woody Allen, 50 years of therapy. You can just start with, is there an area in your life right now? Is it at work? For most of us, it's at work. Sometimes it's our relationships at home. Sometimes it's relationships with someone who's passed. Maybe it's our body. I'm in a relationship with my body, aren't you? And so looking at, where was that stressful? What do I believe about my body? What have I been told about my body? That it can't heal, that it should heal. Either one of those can bring stress into your life. Looking at it. Well, the body sometimes heals and the body sometimes doesn't. I do what I can and I work with what's real. There's always possibilities, and I also notice what's physically happening. And that's where I came up with my addendum this week. I have an addendum most weeks about another way to think about this teaching, or an addition to it. And I've got a good one. And it came along, again, layered through all sorts of things that I'm taking in right now, especially trauma. I've been speaking with you a lot over the last few weeks about the deep work that I've been doing on my own embodied trauma, race trauma, intergenerational trauma. It is the topic of the day, because we are realizing that we are a traumatized world. I really believe that. We are a traumatized world. And I wouldn't have thought that, like, hey, I was not physically abused when I was a child. How could I possibly have trauma? Well, I live in a country that has had 400 years of racial trauma. That's just one. I am a woman who only got the vote about 100 years ago and sees my rights today shrinking. Yeah, we are a traumatized world. And knowing that means we can heal it. I didn't want to hear that before. Eckhart Tolle said in his book, he had this part where he talked about kind of how dark things were in the world and all of that. And in my unity way, I was like, no, Eckhart, everything's pretty good. I mean, there's little problems here. He's a deep teacher, and he is positive, and he does know what's possible. And he sees. He sees what's also here in the physical to be brought forth to heal. So don't make assumptions but believe behaviors. Don't make assumptions about motives, but believe behaviors. And I had a certain person in mind, not a person, but a group of people in mind as I was reading this week, and it was abused women. And I thought, how does this work for someone going through trauma, healing trauma, in a traumatic situation? Don't make assumptions. Oh, that can turn into give them the benefit of the doubt. You don't know why they do that. And that's all very nice and loving and spiritual. And in the physical world, it's okay to believe behaviors. If someone hurts you repeatedly, I think it's okay to assume they might do it again. And to take steps to protect yourself. So that's not an assumption. That is wise discernment based on patterns of behavior. And that is okay. Don't make assumptions, but believe behaviors. Don't make assumptions, but trust patterns. Watch for patterns. Because what I've done and many of you as empaths, as highly sensitive people, as open-hearted, caregiving, positive thinking, unity people, sometimes we need a balance to these teachings that also keeps us healthy. And the first thing is to step back into ourselves to take care of ourselves. And also to take these teachings slightly differently for the filters in our brain. Because we may not have quite the same filters and wisdom that automatically come online. We have a different kind of wisdom. And so we can say, yes, don't take things personally. Yes, don't make assumptions. And I live in a world with people that aren't on the same page sometimes. If I'm in a relationship with such a person, I need to focus more on my agency than all of this sometimes. And that may sound radical, and that's simply where I am. And that it also comes from, we've had a lot of attention recently on personality disorders, the sociopath next door, narcissistic personality disorder.